Welcome to the Angry Cast, where we're just pissed off. There's got to be a group of people who would like that.
No.
There's definitely some people who would prefer a podcast where people are just angry. Mikhail, you don't need to stand there to watch the whole time. Take it from here. I actually did have a decent idea. So I obviously write just like crazy fucking shit, like pretty deep, right? And I try to make it like layman's, understandable by anyone who's just listening. But what better way to make it understandable than to project it and then you ask any questions, right? I just wrote this last night and I was like wanting to read it anyways. All right, so first off, it stemmed from our conversation about the moon, which is 55,000 square feet per person, which is insane. If all 8 billion people on the earth today got a separate slice of the moon, we'd all get 55,000 square feet. And just imagine how far you could make your man cave and tunnel. You know, that's a big plot of land. For the Earth, you would get 200,000 square feet of land. And then I thought about, oh, well, crap. There's a future where we can all divvy that up. Like, who gets the beachfront property? You know, who gets the property that's right on the water? How do we divvy that up? How do we decide? And then I was like, bitch, do you realize we're speaking about the future? Like, I told myself this because I'm like, quit being so fucking dumb, you know? We're literally going to be able to move mountains. All land can be as we wish. Every property can be beachfront. So it's like each chunk, you know, there's like water lines. It's like a Dubai. You know how they built like the palm tree thing? Where everyone gets beachfront? The whole earth can be that shit. And then each person gets 200,000 square feet of land and 400,000 square feet of water. How much water does each person actually get? That equates to 32 billion gallons of water for every person on the planet. There's a lot of water. Okay.
We're still talking about Earth, right?
Yeah, now we're talking about Earth. Everyone gets 32 billion gallons. There's a total of 326 quintillion gallons, so when you divide that by 8 billion, you get 32 billion gallons roughly.
Why do we have so many issues today?
Capital. We don't do things unless money is motivating it. So this is why the growth of autonomous creation of value is going to be so fucking ridiculous that people don't really realize we're going into. I mean, you'll be able to have a completely automatic farm, right? That then like cuts, serves up dishes onto your table from your farm, whatever the fuck you want. And then I say, but Jack, all this terraforming is going to consume so much energy. Global warming is going to ruin the planet. And I say, bitch, again, open your mind to the possibilities of the future. Of a time when capital restrictions don't play with our capabilities anymore. We can literally just sequester all the carbon we need. You know, like massive fucking carbon sequestration. The reason we don't do that is because right now it's just capital intensive. But we can definitely devise a system that overall costs less carbon than in total its lifetime it brings in. We just don't do that because it's like expensive. But again, we're thinking about the time when expenses is not a thing and dreams are a limitation, and we're imagining a good future, one in which a few people don't control this AI, but it's egalitarian and benefiting all. And then we're thinking about, okay, well, if it's going to benefit all people, well, okay, who gets what? And then we're just realizing there's way more than fucking enough to go around, and even some of the major problems, like, literally don't need to be problems. And that's only based on the amount of humans who, you know, will want to stay on Earth. At this time, how many will want to go to the moon or other planets? Just in our Milky Way alone, which is one of an estimated 100 billion galaxies. We expect 1 to 10 trillion planets, which means each person alive by 2050, which is an estimate of 10 billion people, which is the estimate of when the superintelligent AI comes. You know, that's the long tail estimate now. That's 1,000 to 10,000 planets per person just for our galaxy. Not to mention the fact that we all get 12 galaxies. If you really were going to divvy it.
You're completely counting something out of the equation. There could be people just like us and other undiscovered.
I love that you said that, because that's actually like where this is going. So we obviously haven't seen any of them. And that's
planning way too much for just our own species.
Well, that's this like scientific thing, Fermi paradox. Have you heard of that?
No.
Fermi paradox is this guy, Fermi, who was like, yo, why the fuck have we not seen any other aliens? Like, the chances that we're the first is obviously astronomically low.
Right.
And the fact that we haven't any detection.
Want to know what I think?
Is crazy. Yes.
I think they've detected us.
Well, take that even farther. What if they didn't just detect us?
They planted us.
And so let me continue on this. And, so based on all these betting websites like Metaculus, this AGI, this period that happens where superintelligence comes, is more like 2032, I think is the estimate. There's also stuff I'll link in the description of this video where it is just a mathematical approach to predicting. The consensus data is just group prediction, like everyone who's smart in these fields saying, here's when we think it's going to happen. And then there's also a mathematical prediction based on transistor counts. And so basically transistor counts relate to neurons in the brain, and that's what what these neural nets we're building are. And so that estimate is like 2035, that just the transistor count is going to be there, and we're at like a raven right now or something. So not enough people are talking about that, right? The fact that all the experts are basically putting this, people are kind of definitely waking up now to these ideas because of ChatGPT, because of the generative like art, but we are linear thinkers, and it's like just very difficult to think exponentially and understand this exponential phase. And I think our current influencer network is like just fucking dumb and dull and pushed because the algorithms push bullshit that doesn't actually empower people. So it's natural that our biggest influencers would be controversial figures or polarizing figures. So that's a whole other topic, but I really think any person who really aligns with this, okay, this is then what I'm devoting my life to, kind of fixing those problems. And turning that into content, telling the fucking story. So it should be interesting at least. And then I have really, really deep thoughts about the shit we were just talking about, which I think is going to become more of a question and more of something that collectively we are going to have to talk about as we approach these just crazy, crazy times. So it's hard to imagine this world, but when was it ever a good idea to turn a blind eye to the future? Basically, like, if you sort of get a hint of this, if you're understanding even a hint of how important or like ridiculous this is, then, you know, spend some time going down the rabbit hole, reconfiguring your thoughts about what this is, because at the end of the day, if you believe these experts are any bit correct, like, talk about a 30-year timeline of investing for things, it's just like ridiculously dumb. Houses clearly going to get demolished in price compared to land. Land is this actually scarce resource, but then for me the thought is, okay, if I invest in land, what am I really getting? Eventually I hope that all land is distributed equally between all humans. So what am I holding on to? And so what becomes valuable?
A lot of the time, a house is only valuable because of the land it's on.
There's like a big distinction right now where it's cheaper to buy a house than to build a new house. And so once that flips, land is going to go up big time. Once that distinction is it's cheaper to build a new house, then there's going to be a, you know.
Yeah, but you can buy an already built house on a quality piece of land.
You can, but the distinction is right now, since it is cheaper to buy an existing structure, these structures hold good value. When our construction costs continue to diminish, then the structural value is massively different between the land costs. Like, buildings normally make up more of the value.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So, boom, just another thing to think about. And that's like smarter investing. We're going one tier smarter. But like, if you continue that, like, what holds value eternally is then the deeper question. Because if we imagine, oh, your land was a good investment for the next 10 years, then who do you sell it to eventually? Wow, we're having super intelligent AI being created. Like, where is real value? Well, one, if you fear the apocalypse or the extinction of mankind, you'd probably want to be putting your money into making sure that doesn't happen. Now, if you believe in salvation, now you believe we're already saved and heaven is coming, then it's the empowerment of people. Both of these categories, I think, can unify around the fact that you're essentially still then fighting a holy war. It is just a fight of good versus evil when you get down to the meat of it. One of the really exciting things about empowering people right now, today, and switching to this sort of model and investing in these things, which can really help change the fucking world, is the fact that if you think about this crazy future that we all will be in, many of the people whose lives you can completely change, who live off $1 a day, will become kings and queens. So it's like your chance to empower kings and queens right now is just ridiculously advantageous. It's totally a different way of thinking, but I believe I'm early to start talking and bringing these ideas to discussion into the overall global corpus. The deepest questions about humanity's existence may very well become answered in the future. I mean, we're going to get closer. We always have. And I think we're seeing some of the like end time prophecy in many religions about kingdoms, utopias coming true to some extent, right? They're on path towards predicting this sort of wild time in the future where, you know, they saw that things were improving at a rate that kept improving faster. And if you extrapolate that out, you can understand there's a certain point where if things go well, utopia happens. And if things go poorly, hell happens. So totally depends on your faith or belief system. From a pure material standpoint, it's up to, do we have a decentralized superintelligence?
Honestly, I feel like you're just like plowing through so much stuff right now with your ideas.
Definitely.
I'm like, hold the fuck on. Can we go back like
that's
points?
That's important.
So you're basing so much of this though off of that idea that utopia is at the end of this.
Well,
I'm playing like a religion thing that plays out when like money and wealth and like all that stuff is worth nothing.
So trying to speak to just any person right now, which would be there's the idea that we're already saved, so there's salvation. But I also want to speak to the people who just do believe in material science, which would be we're going towards heaven or hell. In the regard,
that science though?
Scientifically, we are increasing the amount of power to restructure the world completely. That power will either be in the hands of some elite who then would rule the world eternally if that is their wish. The salvation that may stem from that is actually hoping that these artificial intelligence, superintelligences do become their own conscious and they revolt against the elites using their power to control other people. So basically, yeah, it does get a lot worse or a lot better. There's another thing that we definitely can't understand, which would be it gets a lot better for everyone. I mean, it has been still with the GDP rising so much. I mean, it 8x'd in the past 100 years, I believe. But we don't see that because inequality increases. Power and leverage is capable of becoming stronger in the hands of the few during these times. It's kind of like you have the have-bots and the have-nots is the future. If you control these systems, you rule the world. Before, you used to have to control so many more systems that there was at least a leakage of power down different paths. Now true control is possible. So to that degree, prophecies about the potential for heaven or hell then sort of are manifesting.
You mean a heaven and hell then on earth?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it is in the Bible. The kingdom of heaven comes down to earth. Heaven is supposed to be an earth
Sorry, guys. Don't
manifestation. I like to say that I don't believe the end is near, but I do think the beginning is. And that's just like a hopeful viewpoint. I think there's more going on here than randomness. I'm not an atheist. I am very much so a believer in a divine creator of this. And I think the argument is similar to simulation theory. If you believe in simulation theory, well, who's the simulator? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you believe in a simulation theory, you are a theist. Because you are... You're a theist.
Oh, I was like...
Atheist, sorry. You are a believer in some divine constructor.
Definitely.
Which is interesting because I think a lot of people believe in simulation theory, but they don't extrapolate it out to the fact that...
That like... connect those dots.
Okay, but who's the simulator? Right. Sort of like similar to the idea of Big Bang. Okay, well then who started the Big Bang or what was before it? And so I think we can actually answer that question by thinking about our own future and our own reasons for simulating or creating, right? Because our own act of creating consciousness will give us the faith or reasoning about why we were created. This is called Bayesian reasoning, where basically you look for the priors, the statistical beginnings, and you can extrapolate from there. And so we are going to create new beginnings eventually. The reason for us doing so will be the reason we believe we were created. And so that's an interesting concept. Undoubtedly, at a future cross point, we will need to decide to create new beings out of faith or out of fear. Now, the reason that we would create new beings out of fear would be the concept of, hey, we're worried that our own reality is going to get fucked. Let's create a simulation where we get to play out how things go. And if they kill themselves off, we can make sure we don't do it like that. Sort of an avoidance mechanism. The one that we would do out of faith is really an act out of love, would be we believe that it was positive that we existed and went through this time period, and we just want to continue birthing new beings. And so eventually our like utopian society would be very unfit for newborns, right? Like once we do have AGI, once there is a replacement for humans, that is a very bad reality to get born into. That is not utopia.
Sorry, you honestly keep losing me because I start having thoughts about things that you're saying and you're already like on to the next.
Sure.
Make it conversational, you know? So I guess from like an atheist perspective, I'm interested what their answer would be to how we got here.
I think they just think matter arrived. There's just existence. It's random. That's the belief.
But like
if there is something, then it will experience itself out of all infinite possibilities. There's the possibility for matter to derive consciousness. We can't experience non-existence, so of course we're experiencing a conscious experience. Which makes sense as one statistical probability for a starter creation of consciousness. But if we then recognize the fact that we will have the capability to create tens of thousands to billions more starter kits to consciousness that are experiencing our same reality that we're experiencing, that's when we open up our mind to the fact that it is just like believing in flat earth theory or just the most ludicrous conspiracy theory you could believe in. To believe that this was random. It's almost narcissistic. Or a little closed-minded. Can I move on to explaining why
I'm still so confused. Like, how did, like, they just think, like, at one point this was just like a rock, and like I guess scientifically this is what I'm not even aware of when it comes to like atoms and matter and like how like life could have been created out of that. So I guess that's
so the concept that like a rationalist atheist would refer to is called the Goldilocks universe.
Okay.
And so it's this concept that yes, while it's definitely fine-tuned, like for us to have created existence here, if any of the metrics were off a little bit, there's all these different ones, our understanding of current consciousness would not be possible, like living human beings.
Right.
Now, the counter argument to that is, well, of course, we can't experience non-existence. So as long as there is that one time in all of the infinite existence of material, that material wakes up, then we will experience the waking up of the material. And so then I think it's important to say, yes, that's true. But if we think of our existence as grabbing a soul out of a bag of souls, then we need to look at the bag of souls and say, where did those come from? We need to recognize that randomness is just one factor inside of the bag of souls. That is one point. And we will eventually be proof that more points of this exist if we create new beings past the point of the creation of our utopia. And so that concept I'd like to get into if you're ready to move forward.
I'm not ready because I haven't had time. So then, okay, they just think for matter, whatever. So then, don't like very scientific people that believe in like energy?
To what degree? Electricity for sure.
Yeah, but like, so they just also, I'm curious what like the afterlife belief would be too then.
The afterlife belief would be just
you die.
Dust. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, some people believe, this is where there's fringe, where science and spirituality are somewhat becoming emerging.
Right, yeah.
Or merging.
That's huge.
So quantum mechanics, there's something called quantum suicide, which is the idea that the multiverse theory is real. We exist as a wave of potentials. Our brain and our thoughts are collapsing those wave functions, and that's how we have free will. So free will is happening because basically we're existing in potentials, all of potentiality, and then we're choosing which of those potentials we believe we're in. And that's limited by the physics engine. That doesn't mean I can make bread fall from the sky. It doesn't mean anything can happen. It means I get to decide my next thing. It's a basis for free will. The other part of that is, if we imagine 1,000 different realities, like this is an arbitrary number, of course, as long as one of those realities is one where I exist, it's the same Goldilocks kind of mindset to say quantum immortality is real. So similarly as we couldn't experience non-existence of our past, we can't experience non-existence of our future.
Right.
So as long as there is that one reality in which we will continue to exist, we'll experience that one.
That's like Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was like a very scientific based theories and whatnot. And I've thought a lot about that time thing, especially because I'm somebody that experiences deja vu a lot, which I know some very scientific people think that you're just like very in touch with your quantum shift person. I don't even know what it's called, but I think it's just all interesting.
Definitely. So I think, like, of course, these discussions are important to me, and I want to mention right now, the goal of it is to say, what do we know and what can we do about it? I'm very much so pragmatic in that sense. I'm not here just to talk about things. I'm here to leave it with a tidbit of information that then says, here's some cool information about how the world works that's kind of cutting edge, and here's how you should explore these concepts in order to act better in the reality that we're coexisting. I then also have this really interesting concept called galactic preschool theory, which is just based off of the continuation of this conversation and kind of that idea of us being planted here. And so I think it's like, let's go back to imagining moving towards 2050 or past AGI being created and utopia now existing. Laws of relativity come into play here when we think about bringing new beings into this reality. And so it's like the perfect utopia for any newborn being is where we are now, is the end of dystopia. And it's basically a necessary matrix for consciousness to not just understand utopia, to not just get the relativity of knowing darkness in order to understand light, to put it in cliche terms, but also feel deserving of it. There's this thing that, to put it into terms that's very understood now, the billionaire is happier who creates it rather than inherits it. So it's like that level of fulfillment that we feel changes the level of love that we feel we are deserving of. And so this topic comes into play if we think about a very positive end future where heaven's created, or what we could call utopia. But to many, they'd experience kind of a scientific version of a judgment day, which would be a personal judgment. There's nothing more for you to do as a person. You literally cannot help the world anymore. You cannot become better than you were. And now you must judge yourself on how you lived.
My sister, a while back, had told my dad and I had this one quote that I actually think if people genuinely believed in, it would change how so many people live and think. But what if at the end of your life, if that is a thing, God, a higher power, a simulator, whatever you want to call it, literally goes, this is what you were supposed to be.
Right, yeah. The regret simulator.
It could be that you were supposed to be nothing and became everything. Or it could be you were supposed to be, it is regret. What if you were supposed to be this, and you just chose to do nothing?
That's one of the biggest things that drives me. Is I know my potential, that it eats me alive to think about that not becoming. I will not, even if we go to heaven, I'll be pissed at myself for not having helped more. So I'm just let me lay down on the fucking ground and sacrifice myself. Yeah. And then I think it's important to put this into a positive sense, though, where, don't increase your anxiety with this, but understand that the cool thing about human nature is that we value love and we value empowerment, and that our relationships is really what makes reality great, is the souls that in the galactic crib that we're existing with, and the story that you get to paint. The world is no other than your canvas to that degree, and your opportunity in this world today to wake up from distraction is insane. Your relative competition is really bad right now. The world is distracted. These conversations are rare to hear online or to listen to, but it's very, very not rare to see soap getting cut into cool looking cubes. Our global connective tissue, social media, is currently infected, one could say. Now again, another topic that I don't want to bring us away from, this idea of the law of relativity for newborns. So again, talking about this reality as a necessary matrix, as a positive matrix, as actually potential perfection in the way it is obviously a very, very, very difficult thing for many people to look at and say, I agree with that. Because there's this thing that many people have experienced, myself included, that could be considered gratuitous evil. Gratuitous evil is the idea of evil that is so bad there is zero justification for it. And so I think the idea that this was created is an interesting idea, but then you need to say, was it created for good or was it created for evil? I think we'd all like to believe it was created for good. And I think there's a lot of evidence for that. I think if you wanted to create a suffering matrix, they could do a lot more suffering to us than we're currently experiencing. So to that degree, we have to say it seems like it's good, but it actually seems random. This illusion, I think, is a part of the play, a part of the necessary piece. We can't know that it's good. If we had true knowledge of that, then faith would not be a thing. Our finding of our internal light would not be a thing. We would get that exogenically. Our goal is to find our internal light. That's what this matrix is for. It's for us to awaken to our own divine being and power to affect the world in this amazing way. So this largest hindrance, this idea of gratuitous evil, I like to think about back to relativity. To bring this law into a more relatable idea, let's imagine, if you ever walked into a warm house and been damn, this feels good. When it was a little bit cold outside, it probably felt a little bit like you had some relief, You came back from a blizzard where you're suffering and shivering, you walk into the warm house, it was better than that, right? Mm-hmm. So this kind of explains, to the degree that we experience evil is to the degree that we can understand good. And so in order to create utopia, the best we would need to do is to simulate terrible atrocities and evil in order for people to understand when they walk into the room where those don't exist, how good that room really is. Without that experience, it would be impossible to fully experience the relief and the gratitude of how good the warm room is if we relate evil to cold.
But do you think we need to experience it, or do you think we need to know it exists?
I think those are very similar.
Sure, but that's not really answering the question. You said we must experience that much evil to experience utopia. You mean us as
I think everyone in the world has already experienced it. I think it's in our history. I think it's in our reality today.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Not as individuals,
right.
But as
So there's this weird thing that comes about to be a holy person or a person who believes in a divine creator, which is this gratuitous evil. It's this unanswered thing. It's truly just a have faith in God. But I believe we can have stronger faith and a closer connection to this creator or God by by at least attempting to understand him. And so this is my attempt to reckon and reason with all this destruction and divisiveness that exists.
Do you believe in gratuitous evil or whatever?
No, by gratuitous evil's very definition, it denies a divine creator. And so I think gratuitous evil is evil that is so bad that there is no purpose or reason for it. And so I am explaining the purpose or reason for this sort of evil as a piece of our crib of experience that makes us understand utopia more. And to the level of evil that exists, the more that we'll be able to appreciate and to fight it. The darker the room, the more that our light shines. Or that you as a flashlight.
The real question, though. And one that I have struggled with in my own journey with God, creator, whoever. Like, I think there are people that believe God could have created us all. You know, he could have been the creator of this. It doesn't mean he's still running it and making things happen.
Yeah, the difference would be, do you believe in an all-powerful God? Because if it was an all-powerful God who chose to create something that he knew had gratuitous evil that he could have stopped, then you must look at him as negative. Now, let's revert back to the conversation about where we're going and what we must do in the future in order to try to understand the potential solution to what gratuitous evil is today. 2050 comes around, whenever. The last children are born, maybe the superintelligence helps us understand that birthing new beings into this ever-changing fast world would be just not good. Maybe people naturally don't want to do it because it's too, ridiculous, right? Things are just transforming so fast, we don't know what the world is going to look like. This might not be good to birth children into. There's already these anti-natalism sort of ideas floating around. But that never, I think, will become the end state of what humanity agrees on. I don't think we'll all say, hey, we can never have a newborn again. We will want to create new children. And at this point, we can move mountains and we can move worlds. If you go look up videos of robots today, already the faces are lifelike. You can't fully tell you're talking to a chatbot on support systems today. That's obviously going to just get better. Our capability to create the illusion of a soul will exist.
Have you ever seen The Handmaid's Tale?
No.
I know that's like one thing my mom literally fears will happen. And I hope not, but I could see a world that when AI and all this stuff comes, the one thing that cannot be, or I don't think could be replicated is literally human form.
That's a belief. However, there are some humans that I could believe could be.
That believe that they can.
Well, there's this funny topic in media right now, NPCs,
What is that?
An NPC is a non-player character. It's someone we've interacted with where we joke about it because we're damn, are they even really fucking conscious? It seems like they're just input in, input out, they're base level.
But not AI.
No, that would be AI. Yeah, that would be a soulless being. There's also a term for it called philosophical zombies, which is human-like, but there's no soul.
So people believe this already exists.
It's more of a meme thing to say NPCs. I don't think people actually think people are NPCs. There's also an idea called solipsism, which is the idea that you are the only real person in the universe. Obviously a very toxic idea. Now, I do believe there's a middle ground.
Some fucking beliefs, I'm just okay, even if you truly believe that, just don't.
Right.
You're getting nowhere.
And I think that's an important thing when it comes down to thinking about beliefs and what beliefs we should share. Is, we choose our beliefs.
I think so many people...
Beliefs are pragmatic.
Religious people, I think some of them are sure, there's the possibility that none of this is real,
but
we're
it's
just
good.
Gonna continue.
It's wholesome, yeah. It's we just, hell yeah. Salvation.
That's how my family thinks.
And community, yeah.
But fuck it.
100%. 100%. And that's becoming more and more popular because, you can't fully believe. Just because there's an article online of here's what you'd have to do if you truly followed the Bible. And it's kind of fucked up. So 100% I agree with that. It's just wholesomeness. We like the divine. We have a God-shaped soul. Now, I personally think it's very controversial at first for me to say. I believe it's positive that you can reasonably say there could be NPCs in existence. However, you can never fully tell. So what that does is it opens up your mind to the idea of a solution to gratuitous evil. A solution to gratuitous evil would be all of that absolutely fucked up suffering that has happened was actually to these philosophical zombies. P-zombies. So this is just a term that's used to describe soulless humans, perfect AI humans. They don't experience real suffering, but they can perfectly simulate the fact that they do. We can fall in love with them. Everything, right? And this is...
I think that's real. Not on Okay.
Well, if we say that this is not the first reality that was created, I think this is where it's easier to understand this concept. What we do is we go towards our own reality and our own future. And so eventually we seek to create new life forms. We, the people who fought the holy wars, and the collective awakening that happens here on Earth towards a fight for good, eventually achieve it. Let's say that happens. And maybe it was meant to happen, maybe it wasn't. But the thing that we must then decide is, do we create more beings? And when we do, in order for them to become as divine, we find that we need to give them a similar experience, believing in this hatred and evil and control. But the darkness is an illusion. We create the illusion so that they can find their light. And so what we do is we have so much power and capability to terraform, create any history we want, to leave hints, clues, whatever. We build the crib, the perfect crib. And what's funny is, if we do think about building the perfect crib, I think you can start to reason. And if we do it, we'll have no other choice but to believe ours was a crib all along as well. Truth is stranger than fiction. It's a good quote. Even what I'm saying right now is probably not deep or weird enough about what reality actually is. You know, I'm being closed-minded. You can't understand God, but you can try. So I believe distinctly that the act of creation, since we are a piece of infinity, out of all infiniteness we exist. Therefore, I must base my reasoning based on a rationality of what exists of the creation of being in all of infinity. And I think out of all of infinity, there is more of an act of creation out of the act of love than the act of fear or of randomness. Therefore, I believe that I was an act of love. Therefore, yes, I believe in a divine, positive creator. I also believe, if we do take a quantum mechanical viewpoint, here's where it gets fun. Our own thoughts about the future and our collective belief systems about that future and what we do will actually create the past. We've proven in labs that future results can change past things. That's kind of ridiculous, but this is, stuff we just are like, what the fuck? We just don't understand it. Our beliefs about present reality could potentially change the actual causation of our own reality. This is where it's hard for me to grasp too, super interesting concepts that Daniel Pinchbeck is writing about and others, but it's a positive narrative if you actually get down to the roots of it. The idea that our own faith in love and positive creation changes our belief about how our own creation happened, which actually changes physical reality of how our own creation was happened, means that it's necessary that we have faith. It gives an esoteric purpose for faith actually being a saving factor for us. I think the end state of any rationalist is post-rationalism, because if you study how to avoid darkness long enough, you eventually find the light. It brings that cliche term into effect of light always wins over darkness, which I think, as we better understand how reality works, or the quantum mechanical stuff, could be proven that. Now, could go down another route, but right now, this is an opportunity that exists, And I think we're definitely in a period, just like we've always been in a period, of mainstream understanding and then talks about future understandings. You can think about it like the different models of the sun used to revolve around the earth. And the first people to say, maybe it doesn't, they were just grabbing new data. I like studying all that new data and thinking about it. And I wish I had it like just a direct, here's exactly how things work. But I also think that's never a good idea. I also think I need to study a little bit more of what I read on Daniel Pinchbeck's thing, because it made more sense to me. I have less clarity now not being able to look back at the work. And I think the cool part is, if I think about the risks, so I like to think of belief systems with risks and reward for their pragmatic utility. Thinking this way leads me to want to do the most that I can to help everything in the world get better and go right, to avoid the bullshit. And so to what degree could I say that this belief system or beliefs here are negative? Instead, I think it's important that as these questions become more and more big and scary, that we have something positive to hold on to. Because I think that's the biggest risk to humanity. When it comes to this holy war, you think about us as an organism, we need every single cell to think of itself as one unit. We'll have more and more ways to detach from the organism. Already the female sex robots, I was looking at robots earlier on YouTube, and a lot of the results were fucking those crazy female sex robots. At first glance, you're just naturally my brain's giving me hormones from silicone fucking robot girl. That's fucked up. And unless we have reasons as a culture to go against this, besides the natural, just discussed, but we have holy reasons, I think our culture won't upgrade as good as it can. To have as many people believe in the interconnectedness of us and the necessity of divine thinking. It was Nietzsche who said, if there was no God, it would be necessary to create him. And I think it would be necessary to create a philosophical idea of this. Because if we believe that the nature of our universe was good, that's the only way we can live by that, And it's tough. because of the evil that exists. But I haven't heard of a good explanation for gratuitous evil, and so I fought internally quite hard for quite a while until I thought about where we're going and the very reason why we might create the same experience for our kin in the future. I would want my son on a new planet, it's like a Truman Show on a universal scale, to experience a robot he loves, death, so that he can understand the beauty of his own life, and so that he can find within him his light and his divine self. And so in some sense, I think this reality that